started. Okay, we are going to begin tonight. We're beginning tonight on Daf Tes Summit Bays. Let me just get this bigger. Okay, Daf Tes Summit Bays. A couple lines from the bottom, about 10, 15 lines from the bottom. We began this Gemara yesterday. Let me just make it smaller. Teishat Tziburin. You have it, everybody? Teishat Tziburin.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, we started this yesterday, but let's just reiterate what we're talking about here. Here's the picture on the thing. You have 9 piles of matzah. Okay, matzah food, and the red is one pile of chametz food. Okay, so now the first case is the mouse came in, went to this piles. We don't know which piles he went to, and basically it grabbed something from this piles and went into the house. So logically, you would say, what would you say? 90% it was matzah food. But we look at it from the Torah point of view is 50-50. And we discussed this yesterday, that we look at it as if like the coin toss is independent probability to what happened before. It's called kavua kamechza mechza dame. We look at it as a 50-50 case. But what happens, what we're going to talk about now, again, is if you have the same case, but one of the food separated itself out and away from the piles, and then the mouse came and brought it into the house that had the badika already, then once it's separated out, we assume kol de parish, meruba parish. It probably came from the matzah pile, and therefore when the mouse brought it into the house, it brought in matzah into the house, so you don't have to redo the whole badika. And that's the Gemara says. Okay, so let's read it into the Gemara. Teishat Tziburim. You have nine piles of matzah, piles of food of matzah. We're going to learn, the whole Gemara that we're learning today is 10 cases. Teishat Tziburim Shematzah. You have 9 piles of matzah. Ve'echad shel chametz, and one of them is chametz. Va'asa achbar, and a mouse came, ushkal, and took it. V'lo yadin, and we don't know, I matzah shkal, ish chametz shkal. You don't know what pile did the mouse grab the food from. So the Mishnah says, so the Gemara says, Hainu, that is the same case, Teisha Chaniyas, of the 9 butcher stores. We're going to talk about that in a second. The Gemara is going to keep comparing a case of the matzah to the case of something else, a known thing in Mishnayos. Perish, va'asa achba ushkal. Let's say the food separated it out. That's the same case as Hainu Seif at the end of the Mishnah. So Perish means it's separated out from the pile, and now the mouse came and took the food. That's the end of the Mishnah. What are we talking about? So now we learned in the Mishnah. Teisha Chaniyas. You have 9 butcher stores in the neighborhood. Kulan Meichrim B'sar Shchuta. They're all selling kosher meat. Okay, they're all under the vad. Ba'achas Mecheres B'sar Nevela. One selling treif, right? And a guy walked into the stores, and if he doesn't know, his wife, the guy walked in the stores and doesn't know, he has no idea which store he walked into. So you would think, Rav he went into the kosher stores. The answer is no. Sveikoi aser. This is derived from a pasuk, that because you going into the place of where the suffix is, it's called keva, the item didn't move, so that means you look at it as a 50-50 chance of you getting shchuta or getting the vela, and you're not allowed to have the meat. But let's say you find the food on Central Avenue, right? You found the food on Central Avenue. Most of the places sell kosher meat. One store says non-kosher meat. Then, then you can eat the meat because you go after the majority. So same thing over here, that if the food separated out and then the rat came and took it into the house, then we can assume the rat took the matzah food, and you will not have to do another bedika. Case number 2. So let's move down here. We're going to go to case number 2. Here is a very interesting...
Where are you?
I'm up to up to Test Summit Bays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines from the bottom.
Okay.
Got it? Okay, so now
Yeah.
look at this case. You have two houses. The green did the bedika already. The red did not do the bedika. You have two foods, kosher Pesach food, matzah food, and chametz food. And you have two rats. We saw the rats go take food and go into the house, but we don't know which rat went into which house. Did they go into let's say, would you say, for example, that the rat that took the chametz food ran into the checked house of chametz, and then you would have to redo the bedika. And the same thing with the matzah one, maybe he went into the unchecked house, and therefore you still have to do the bedika. So look at the case. Shnei tziburim, echad shel matzah ve'echad shel chametz. You have two piles, one of matzah, one of chametz. Lifneihem, in front of them, shnei batim. You have two homes. Echad baduk ve'echad she'eino baduk. One is checked for chametz, and one's not checked for chametz. V'asu shnei achbarim. Two rats come, two mice come. Echad shkal matzah ve'echad shkal chametz. One took a matzah, one took the chametz. V'lo yadinam, but we do not know, hey lahai oil, v'hai la'ayah. Which one did they go into? Which one didn't go into? So you could say, off the top of your head, you probably say, chumradik, go do bedika again. But what we're trying to get through into this Gemara is that to simply say do bedika again is a very difficult thing, because the way they used to do bedika was it took hours and hours, and not like us, we can do it 1, 2, 3. So they did it hours and hours to do bedika. So to require him to do a new bedika is a real chumrah. So that the answer is Hainu Shtei Kupas. We found a Mishnah that has a similar question, and we could go lenient. Where's the case? The time we learned in the Mishnah, Shtei Kupas. You have two piles, Echad shel Chulin ve'echad shel Truma. You have two piles, one of Chulin and one of Truma. And in front of them, Shnei Se'in. You have two Sa'in. Echad shel Chulin ve'echad shel Truma. 2 pounds of fruit, one is chulin, one shel truma. So you have chulin truma versus chulin truma. Now, v'naflu elu l'soich elu, each one fell into something, right? So there's a possibility that the chulin fell into the truma, and the truma fell into the chulin. So we say mutarim. Both piles, now that you originally started off with 4 piles, now you have only 2 piles, both piles are mutar. Shani Omer, because I say chulin l'toich chulin nafla. We say that the chulin fell into the chulin, and utruma l'toich truma nafla, and the truma fell into the truma. So when you have, so that's what we say. Because we go lenient, we say it fell into the right place, and therefore it's not mixture of chulin and truma, but the chulin fell into the chulin, and the truma fell into truma. So let's go into our case. What do we say? That the rat that took the matzah food ran into the checked house of chametz, no problem there. And the rat that took the chametz food went into the unchecked house. That's what the Gemara comes out with right now. You could go lenient, and you do not have to make a new bedika. So the Gemara asks a question: Ema da amrin and shani oimer. When would I say that I go lenient? Maybe when would you say is betruma d'Rabbanan? We go to Daf Yud Amud Aleph. Only because the case is talking about truma, which is d'Rabbanan anyway. The chometz d'oraisa mi amrin. By chometz, which our case is d'oraisa, would you say you go lenient? So our case is a d'oraisa. We're dealing with d'oraisas. Did you do? Is there chometz in this house or not chometz in the house? Why should I go lenient? So the Gemara counters that question and says, not true. Atu b'divchatz chometz d'oraisa. The checking of chometz in a house, is that d'oraisa? D'Rabbanan he. It is the Rabbanan anyway. The Medaraisa Bittel Be'al Masagila. But the Raisa, all you had to do is nullify and say, I don't want the chametz, and that's it. You don't really have to do bedika. So the whole fact of bedika's chametz is only Rabbanan anyway. When it comes to a Rabbanan and you have a suffix, a doubt, we could go lenient and say that the chametz fell into the chametz house and the matzah went into the matzah house. Case number 3. Each one is color-coded here. Tzibur echad shechametz. So what's this case talking about? A guy has 1 pile. Now, this is fascinating. The mouse has one choice of matzah, of chametz food, red. He went into one house. Both are checked houses. Now, I guarantee you're not going to answer the question correctly. Would you say, and you saw the mouse go into a house, what would you say to these two houses? He for sure went into one of the houses. What would you tell the owners of these two houses? I would have said, tell him to do Badika again, right?
You're not sure. You're not 100% sure.
Right. You're not 100% sure.
So both are fine. You don't do Badika.
I wouldn't. But you know for a fact that it went in. You'd make a good rabbi.
On each one's a suffix, and then each one.
Right. Each one's a suffix.
But okay.
So, right. So the Gemara is going to come out. It depends who you ask. It depends how you ask. Yeah. So. Like snake. Right, so the Gemara says, "So fun of it, it's one pile of chametz. So fun of base, butter, beduk, and you have two houses that are checked. Va'asa achbar, and the mouse came, ushkal, and took the matzah. V'lo yadin, and I do not know ilahai al. Did it go into this one or that one? Hainu shvei shvilin. This is exactly what you just said. It's the case of the two roads. The Tanah we learned in the Mishnah in Taharos, shnei shvilin. I have two roads. Echad tamei. I know for sure one has a grave. How do you know for sure one has a grave? Rashi says, kever mutol l'rachbai. That the grave is along the width. So if you traveled on that road, you for sure became tamei. And the echatar, and one is no grave. The guy went on one of them, but also taharis, and then did truma, whatever. He got involved with taharis. So now is the taharis tamei because he went on one of those roads. His friend went to the second one, taharis. So now one of them is tahar, one of them is tamei, and one of them is tahar. But for sure, one of them is tamei. So Rabbi Yehuda says, if they both asked by themselves, they went to the rabbi in their own town, and the rabbi should say each one of them is tahar. And the reason is because this Rashi says we know the suffix tuma b'reshus rabim sveikei tamei, as Rashi says. Bezin cannot be tamei. It's learned from Sukkim that if you have a doubt, if you became tamei, and it's because you passed through a reshus harabim, we even minatorah, you say the guy is tahar. So each one goes to his rabbi and says, I have a suffix. If I became tamei or not, the rabbi is going to say to each of them tahar. But here's the problem: shneim b'basachas. If they go together to the rabbi at the same time, the rabbi cannot tell them you're both tahar because one of them for sure became tamei. So therefore, then he would say tameim. They're both tamei. Rabbi Yossi says ben kach tameim. It doesn't matter if they ask at the same time or if they don't ask at the same time. They become tamei because certainly one of them is tamei. That's what Rabbi Yossi says. Rabbi Yehuda is a little difficult to understand because if they asked at different times, so what? For sure, then one is tamei. How could the rabbi, even if it could be the same rabbi, say to both of them that you're tahar if they ask at different times? So Amar Rava says like this. Rava clarified this. If they come at the same time, divrei hakol tamei. Everybody would agree that they're tamei. But if they come one after another, divrei hakol taharin. Everybody would agree they're tahar. Loi nechelku, there's no argument. Ela b'bali hishol olav al chavero. If the guy came to the rabbi and said, I'm asking about myself, and at the same time, I want you to paskin about my friend also. And he said it toich kidei dibur, right at the. So now the rabbi has to give a psak for both of them, but he's only giving the psak to one of them to tell the other friend. Rabbi Yossi medame leila b'vasachas. That is very similar to the two people coming at the same time, which is bevadai tamei. So if one comes and he's asking for himself and about his friend, so then that's tamei. Rabbi Yehuda medame leila zeh. Rabbi Yehuda says this is similar to zeh achazeh, and therefore, even though he's asking on his friend, the rabbi can say you're tahar and tell your friend also that he's also tahar. So that is the chum, right? So now let's see, how does that relate to our case? I'm just pointing the Rashi over here. The gabe botim nami, by our case of the houses. Again, what is the case of the houses? The rat went into one of the houses. How would you paskin? So Rashi explains, If they all come and ask separately, we tell each one of them, you do not have to do Badika. The Kavan, the B'dikas Chametz, the Rabbanon, since B'dikas Chametz is Rabbanon, Talin and Kula, we go to Kula. Even though the Chametz is in somebody's house, but you're asking me at the different times, it's therefore, it's a suffix to Rabbanon, Vamrin and Sveke Muta. But if they come at the same time to the rabbi, the guys of the two houses come to the rabbi and say, we saw the mouse go into one of our houses, Shneim Shrichim B'dika, then we would paskin that both of them need B'dika. That was case number 3. Now, so now we go to case number 4. So let's go into case number 4. You have 2 paths. Okay, here we go. Case number 4 is like this. We're not sure if it went in. Okay? We saw it go, but we're not sure if it went in or did not go in. Let's see what that case is all about. Suffix all, suffix loy all. We saw the mouse go to the chametz food, but we're not sure if it went into the house or not went into the house. So that would be simple. I would say it's tahar. So the Gemara says Hainu bika ubepliktu Rab Lezer Rabbanim. That's the case of a valley, of a bunch of fields, and it's dissimilar to the machlokes between Rab Lezer and Rabbanim. The Tanah we learned in the Mishnah. Hanichnas labika. Bika is a bunch of fields together. Imagine like 5 fields all connected to each other out there. And it's b'moisa k'shamim. It's during the rainy season. So it's when people are planting, and therefore it has a din of a reshus yachid. The tumah b'sadei plainis, and the tumah is in one person's field. V'ama echad, and one of them said, halachti b'mokem halaz. I went to these fields, so I don't know if I got into one of the fields that has the tumah in. So imagine you have 5 fields. One of them has a grave there. The guy says, I went into one of those fields, but I don't know if I went into the one with the grave. If I went into that one with the grave, or did not go into the one with the grave, right? So Rab Lezer Matar, Rab Lezer says you're tar. Why? Because it's a suffix tumah. No, the Chachamim metamim. The Chachamim say you're tameh. Because it's a suffix tumah b'reshus hayachid, and we have a suffix tumah in b'reshus hayachid, then you go strict. But Rab Lezer does not consider it a suffix tumah because you have a double suffix. You have a suffix if you went into the field with the grave, and even if you went into the field with the grave, there's another counter suffix of maybe you didn't even you didn't step over the grave. Maybe you went around it, even if you went into the field that had the grave. So it's a sveka. That's why Rab Lezer says Yitame. But the Chachamim say, no, we view it as one suffix tumah in a Reshus Yachid, and we assume that you become Tameh. So Rab Lezer says suffix B, if you're not sure if you came in tahar, you're tar, because you have a double suffix. But if you know for sure you went in, but you have a suffix maga tumah, if you're not sure if you touched the tumah, so it's a one suffix in a Reshus Yachid, Tameh is Tameh. So let's apply that over here. Here, Gabe Botim, like Rashi says, Afilu Rabbanim Moidi. Even the Rabbanim would agree that you don't have to do a new Badika. The Kavan, the Badikas Chametz, the Rabbanim, Talidim, the Kula, we go lenient. So again, in this case, you have a doubt of a mouse going into the house or not going into the house. So it's like a suffix tumah over here, but it's a suffix tumah that's a Rabbanim. It's a suffix to Rabbanim because do you need to do Badika? Do you not need to do Badika? So therefore, you don't have to do the Badika again. Taisus I just point out that this Gemara is a little odd. I mean, you probably picked up on it. If it's a suffix, he went in, and suffix if the mouse did not go in. And then the Gemara says that would be the argument of Rab Lezer and Rab Lanim. And then Rashi concludes that in this case, although Rabbanon are strict by the case of the Kaver, the Rabbanon would say, would agree that you don't have to do a new Badika over here. So it's not even an argument. They both agree that there's no Badika needed to be done in this case. But the Gemara seems to imply that the Rabbanon who are strict over there would be also strict by Badika. So that's a little odd. New case. case number 5, I think. Al ubadak v'loy ashkach. Let's say you walked into the house. You saw the mouse go into the house, okay? You saw the mouse go into the house. Okay. You saw the mouse go into the house. That's for sure. But then, now you're looking for the chametz. So now you have to do the bedika. If you see the mouse go into your house, you have to redo the bedika. But let's say you redid the bedika and you don't find anything. So what then? Al ubadak v'loy ashkach. And you didn't find anything. Plukta the Rabbi Rabbanim. This would be an argument between Rabbi and the Rabbanim. It's now we learned in the Mishnah. Hoya Rabbi Omer Rabbi says, Kol dava shebecheskas tuma la'olam hi b'timosai achi yavadol tuma heichen hi. That means you have to search and search and search until you find that bread, because unless you're certain, you don't assume that it was taken away by something. What is the case over there? Let's just read the Rashi. Kol dava shebecheskas tuma b'mesechta nida. Let's say gal tame, let's say a wall that fell down, and it has, let's say, a tamei mace under there. Let's say a dead piece of basar mace underneath. But in Shnei, it got mixed up with 2 piles that are tahar. So you have 3 piles of rubble in front of you. One of them, for certain, has a mace underneath. Batku echad. So you checked one rubble. V'nimtza tar, that's tar. So who tar? Ushnaim tameim. Then you assume the rest of the 2 is tamei, because the first rubble has nothing, so the other 2 have the mace underneath. Shnayim, but if you check 2 piles, umatzon taharim, hein taharim v'ashlishi tamei. They're tahar, and the third one is tamei. But shloshtam umatzon taharim. Let's say you checked all 3. Now I don't know. I know for a fact there was a mace underneath, and now I checked all 3 piles. Rameya says kulam tameim, they're all tamei, because once you have a cheskas tuma, it's always going to be tamei until you know where the tamei went. And Chachamim say no. If you checked it, and you checked all 3 of them, till you checked each one to the bread rock or to the soil, and if you don't find it, we say a bird came or an achbar came and took it. So now also we're going to apply this thing by bedikas chametz. Even Rameh, who's strict over there, we say achbar ochla the bedikas chametz rabbanim. So basically, in this case, we're going to say that if you know that the mouse took it in, and you did your best to check it, and you can't find the chametz in the house, that's fine. We can assume that another mouse came and took it. That's what the Gemara says. So let's read it inside. All of Badak v'lay ashke pluk the Ramei Rabban. Now we learned in the Mishnah, Hoy Ramei Oime kol davar shebecheskes tuma la'olam hu b'tumasai. You always say it's tamei achi vad l'cha tuma heichen hi. The Chacham Amayim meboidik, you check achi megia l'sela l'karka b'sula. You check till you reach the bedrock or the soil. And if you don't find the tuma, you can say fine that the tamei mace was taken by a rat or a mouse. So same thing over here. You do your best to do the badik in the house. If you don't find the chametz that the rat brought into the house, that's okay. You don't have to. You could use the house over Pesach. All ubadaku v'ashkach. Let's say you go into the house and found the chametz. It means the mouse brought the chametz into the house, and you went in, did a badik, and you found. I found it. Maybe, but there's a possibility you found new chametz. You didn't find the old chametz. So do you have to continue checking? Let's say after 5 minutes of checking, I found the bread. Do you assume that the bread that you found was the one that the mouse brought in? Or maybe that's a brand new chametz that you didn't know before. That is a plukta Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Sodesh never bokever. Let's say you have a homestead or an area, and you don't know, somebody was buried there, and you don't know exactly where. Anybody who walks into that field is tamei because you know somebody's buried in this field. But let's say you do a little search and you found a grave. Then the next guy that walks into this field is tar because you found the grave. The kever that was lost, that is the kever that was found. Rebbe. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel we have to check the whole field because we can assume that perhaps you found a brand new kever that you didn't know about. So you have to recheck the whole field thoroughly to make sure that there's no other kever in the field. You can't just rely that just because you found one kever, that's the kever that was lost. But again, I guess That's this is what we would say over here. That is concerning Tuma Doiraisa. But over here, here we can say, here we were going to say also the same idea that if you find the chametz right away, you don't have to continue the bedika. Because anyway, bedika says the Rabbanan. So even Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, who's strict over there by the Tumah Bakever, would say by the bedika, if you walk 5 minutes into your house and you find the piece of chametz, you can assume that was the chametz that the mouse brought into the house. Again, case number 8. Haniach tes u'matzah. Let's say you put down 9 pieces of bread. And then, let's say you have 9 pieces of bread in your house. And you left it on the side. Let's say you have one room of your house. You check the whole house. In one room, you put 9 pieces of bread in your house. The next day, you come, you find 10 pieces of bread. Now, how do you look at that? You could say that perhaps a mouse came and just added another piece of bread. So you don't have to do bedika the whole house again. You found 10, kol hakavod, take the whole 10 and be done with it. Or you can say a rat came, took all the 9 that was there previously, and now brought another 10. So now a rat took the whole pile of 9 and spread it out on the whole house. And now you have to recheck the whole house. So plukted the Rebbe Rabbanan. That's a machlokes Rebbe Rabbanan. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Haniach mana. Let's say a guy left 2 piles. One pile of chulin, and a mana of chulin, and one pile of money of Ma'aser Sheni money. Okay? You find 2 piles. A mana of chulin and a mana of Ma'aser Sheni, 2 piles of money. Then you find them all mixed up, and you find them all mixed up. So then you can say that they're both the same. It's chulin and Ma'aser Murav and Zebazet, Divrei Rebbe. It's chulin and Ma'aser Sheni mixed up with each other, and therefore you could just transfer the kedusha of the Ma'aser Sheni, of the mana of Ma'aser Sheni, and you could use the whole pile as 200 Ma'aser of 200 chulin. But anyway, we view it as it's the same pile that you left there originally. Everything is chulin. You don't look at it as Ma'aser Sheni. You assume that somebody took those 2 piles that you left separately and brought you 2 brand new piles of 200 mana of chulin. So we assume that the original stuff that you left was taken, and new monies came here to take its place. So the Chachamim, now think, here's the switcheroo. The Chachamim are very lenient because you always assume somebody took what you left and brought you brand new. So same thing by the Achbar, the Chachamim would be strict. If you left 9 and then you find 10 pieces of bread, we assume that the mice took the 9 that you left and brought you 10, brand new 10, and spread the 9 all around the house. So you have to do a new bedika. Because that's what the Chachamim hold. But Rebbe holds, no, what you left always remains in its same place. So then, according to Rebbe, you wouldn't have to do a new bedika. These are your original 9, and somebody came and added, an Achbar came and added a 10th one. According to Rebbe, who was strict over there, he would hold you lenient by bedikas chametz, and you would not have to do a new bedika. Here's the opposite case. Hiniach yud, let's say you left 10, umatzah tesha, and you find 9. Again, the Hainu Seifa, that is the same case of the Rebbe and the Chachamim. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Haniach Masayim. Let's say you left a pile of 200 monies. Umatzah mana, of mixed. Umatzah mana, and you found mana, munach, mana moto. One was stayed, and one was taken. So it's the same pile, just let's say it was Ma'aser Sheni money. You could assume that, let's say you left 200 Ma'aser Sheni money. Somebody came, took 100, and what you left is Ma'aser Sheni money. Divrei Rebbe. You could assume that your whole Ma'aser Sheni money, your 200 Ma'aser Sheni money was taken, and what's left is only chulin. So the Chachamim say you always accuse that when the guy came, he took the whole thing. So now let's go back to the case over here. You left 10 pieces of bread. You come back to your room and you only find 9 pieces of bread. So that is exactly what the case is. That's the case over here, that according to Chachamim, somebody took all 10 and placed down 9. So all your whole original 10 is not the same 10. It's not part of this 9. It's that your original 10 was taken and spread all around the house. Therefore, you would have to do a bedika. But according to Rebbe, you would not have to do bedika. Somebody just, the mouse took one, but you could very well assume that the 9 is still intact. Now, we go to Chesed Yudam Beis. Let's say you left the chametz in one corner, and you found the chametz in another corner. So then the Gemara says, "Plukta Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Rabbanim." That will be a machlekes between Rab Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbanim. I mean, you left chametz in one corner of the room. Fine. You come back, and the chametz is in the other corner of the room. That is the argument of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Rabbanim. What's that talking about? The Tanya we learned in a brisa. Kardem she'ava babayis. You have a shovel that was lost in your home. You can't find it. So then you know somebody came into your house and rummaged through all, and every ganav has a cheskas tuma. So whole bayis tame. Everything in your house becomes tame. You had a ganav in your house, everything is tame. Shani oimer, because I assume adam tame nichnas l'sham unutolei. A tame person went into your house and took it. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel oimer habayis tahor. The bias remains tahor. Shani oimer, because I say you can't find your shovel. Doesn't mean it was stolen. You probably lent it to somebody else and you forgot it. You forgot who you lent it to. But your bias was not. You were not robbed. You took it from one corner, and you put it to another corner, and you forgot. So the Gemara doesn't understand this last piece over here. What do you mean? Who mentioned anything? The shovel is missing. You didn't find it in another corner. So the Gemara wants to do a little mind the pun. It's little housekeeping on this brisa. Who's talking about the shovel moving around? So the Gemara says no. You have to learn that the brisa was missing words. You lost the shovel in the house. A tummy person went into the house and took it. Fine. Let's say you left it in one corner and you found it in another corner. The Chachamim still say habayis tummy, because who moved it from one corner to another corner? You certainly didn't. You don't remember doing it. Shadi Oima, I would say, Adam Tommy Nichnusham, an Adam Tommy went into your house, and took it from one corner and brought it to the other corner. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Loima, Habayis Tar, Shadi Oima, Ishil Acha, Vashachach, Ashim Tloy Mizavizu, Vinich Mizavizu, Vashachach. That you either lent it to somebody else, and that's why you don't find it, or you were the one, you forgot. You left it, you took it from one corner and put it in the other corner, and you had it like a singular moment, and you forgot. So we can assume that you're the guy, you're the culprit over here. So back to the chametz. You put chametz in your room. You come the next day, and you find the chametz on the other side of the room. We can assume, according to Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, that you were the one that moved it. But according to the Chachamim, no. We assume that somebody else came into the house, took your original chametz, brought chametz into your house, and now you're finding brand new chametz. According to the Chachamim, you'd have to do a whole new bedika again. Let's conclude the Gemara, a bunch of little cases over here, but fascinating cases. Amar Rava says, Achba nichnas v'kika b'fit. Let's say a mouse goes into your house and it's carrying a piece of bread in its mouth. The nichnas achrov, and you ran after the mouse, umotzei perurim, and you found crumbs in the house. So you're going to say that what I say, clean up the crumbs. That was the mouse's crumbs. No. Tzarech bedika, you have to check the whole house. A mouse does not leave crumbs. So that crumbs is new crumbs. That's not the mouse. It's not the bread that was in the mouse's mouth. But Rava said, let's say a child went with a piece of bread in its hand. The nichnas achrav, then you follow after the child, the motza perurim, and you found crumbs. Ein tzorach bedika. You don't need bedika. Why? Because then the child does make the crumbs. So if you walk right into the house and you see the crumbs, you can assume that bread came from the child, and therefore you don't have to do a bedika to the entire house. You can just clean up the crumbs, and that's fine. Boy Rava, so Rava asked the question. Achbar nichnas bekika b'fiv. Let's say you have a mouse that walks into a house and it's for sure carrying a piece of bread. Now, but then you see another mouse coming out of the house with the bread in its mouth. So you're not such a good exterminator. Is that the same mouse coming out of the house? That's the one that went into the house. That's the one that went out of the house. Or maybe it's another mouse. If you want to say if you want to say yes, that's the one that went in. That's the mouse that went into the house. That will be the same one coming out of the house. Okay. How about this case? You have a white mouse going into the house with kika b'pid and a piece of bread in its mouth. And a black mouse comes out of the house. Now you know for certain that it's not the same mouse coming out of the house, but it's carrying a piece of bread. Maybe that's certainly another mouse. So therefore, you'd have to do bedika. Maybe the black mouse mugged, M-U-G-D-E-D, mugged the white mouse, and that's how it got the kikar. So therefore, if it took the same kikar, you would not have to do the bedika. If you want to say, mice don't mug each other, so to speak. They respect each other's foods. So, but what happens? Achnes goes into the house. A mouse goes in the house. A kika b'fir and a kika is in his house. The chulda yaitza the kika b'fir mao. And a weasel is in the house that goes into the house. And now a weasel eats mice. That's.
I don't know if you can assume that the black mouse is going to mug the white mouse. It's very racist.
Right.
You have to say it's an African American mouse.
Very good.
A white Caucasian mouse.
Excellent.
I'm very offended by that.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Right.
Everybody still paying attention? No.
Yeah, excellent. But the weasel, which is it's not a rodent. People think it's like a mouse. Weasels would mug a mouse. So that for sure, the Gemara says, if you see the weasel going into the house, if you see like this, if you say, I'm sorry. Let's go up a little bit. The mouse went into, and the cake is in its mouth. And then you see the weasel coming out of the house, and the piece of bread is in its mouth. The weasel certainly mugged the mouse. Maybe this is it mugged a different mouse, or maybe it's a different piece of bread. Then Isa the because if you think that the weasel would have mugged the mouse, weasels eat mice. It would have taken the mice too. It should have eaten the mice like over here. So the question is, if you don't see it eating the mice, so then why didn't it eat the mice? Why didn't it just grab the bread? If you want to say that if it took the bread and it should have had the mouse in its mouth, okay, this case. You see a mouse go into a house, the kika b'fiv and this piece of bread in its mouth, right? And you see the weasel going out. The kikar v'achbar b'fichulda. You have one side of the mouth of the weasel is the kikar, is the bread, and one side of the mouth is the mouse. So now everything's solved, and therefore you probably don't have to do a bedika. No, hacha. What would you say over here? Hacha vadihu ihuhu. That's the same thing. The mouse went in. The weasel caught the weasel caught the mouse and grabbed the bread. Or maybe there's a problem with this case. You have to do a little Sherlock Holmes. If isa the iu ninu, if it's the same mouse with the bread, then why isn't the piece of bread in the mouse's mouth? Why is it in the weasel's mouth? Why is it on the other side of the weasel's mouth? You should have found the kikar, the bread, in the mouse's mouth, not in the weasel's mouth. Or maybe you can say, you have to do a little Columbo over here. Really, as soon as the mouse saw the weasel, it dropped the bread. And therefore, the weasel attacked the mouse, and the bread dropped on the floor, and the weasel picked up the bread. Ushkalte. Takey, these whole things are questions whether you have to do a bedika. Again, for your house, you have to ask a good rabbi over here. Let's finish to the Mishnah. It's another easy Gemara. Boy, Rava asked this question. Kika b'shmei koira tzarach sulam lo'irida ein tzarach Let's say you have a very high rafters in your house, and there's a bread there. Are you required to get a whole ladder to get the chametz there? Most likely during Pesach you're not going up to the rafters. So maybe do you have to bother to get a ladder and take it down, or maybe you're not? Remember, Chachamim gave you this bedika as a bother, but they didn't want to make it to you over strenuous. They knew how strenuous it is. So then do they require you to get a ladder to get that from the rafters? Rabbis didn't bother you so much. It's not going to drop by itself. You're not going to come to eat it on Pesach. Maybe it could fall. Let's say the earthquake happens and it falls, and you're going to come to eat it. So you should have to get the ladder and get up to the rafters and get that piece of bread down. If you want to say this isn't enough of us, you're going to come to eat it because it could fall down. Kika babar. Let's say you have a big pit in your house, right? A well in your yard, and you know there's a bread there. Sarach sulam la loisa. Do you have to take a ladder down to the pit and bring back up the bread? Or ain sarach, or you don't have to, because it's not going to pop out of the well by itself. So certainly, over Pesach, you're not going to encounter the bread that's in the pit. Maybe you're going to have to go down there to do your needs. Maybe you're going to, for some reason, going to have to go into the well over Pesach. You're going to come to eat it. If you want to say that sometimes you'll go down to the well and you're going to come to eat it, the final question is, let's say you have kikar befi nachash. You have a snake. Most snakes are not poisonous. It's in your house. Your pet snake has a bread in its mouth. Do you have to get a charmer to charm the snake into spitting up to letting go of the piece of bread? Or maybe you don't have to. Certainly, you're not going to go near the snake and take out the bread. Or maybe it'll drop it. So begufe atrache rabbanan. The rabbanan required you to do bedikas chametz. But since you don't know anything about getting things out of snakes, it's going to cost you money. Maybe the rabbis didn't require you to spend money for the bedikas chametz. Maybe the rabbis didn't require you to spend money on bedikas chametz. Only if you could do it yourself. If you can't get the kikar out of the mouth of the snake, you don't have to hire somebody to do it. Maybe it's no difference. You have to, the rabbanim said bedikas chametz, you have to even spend money on it to get the kikar out of the mouth of the snake. Teiku. Gemara answers that is a question. So we had a bunch of 10 cases over here, about 10, 15 cases, and a boya rava. Fascinating Gemara today.
We have to find somehow to apply these mice, rats, and weasels to today's bedika of chametz like this.
Right. So these everything you find in the Gemara is concepts. And the rabbi was able to take the concept and apply it.
That's what I'd like to try to find out, how to apply this. What are they thinking? Because obviously, if you just do the pshat, and we're not thank God, not too many houses have weasels, rats, and mice.
Snakes even, right.
And snakes.
But this must have been a very, very common question.
Yeah, then it was, yeah.
Right. But one thing you do see from all these Gemaras, that to do a bedika took hours and hours. It's not like you do 5 minutes and you go and you're out in Chosen Island.
Right.
You actually did hours and hours. So any Shiloh over there, they tried to say, oh, okay, you don't have to do the bedika again.
Right.
It's fascinating. So fascinating Gemara over here.
Yeah. Eshkoch.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hey, good night.
All the best.